How many times have you lost your identity in something outside of yourself, only to find that when you lose that thing, you now have no sense of self, no feeling of who it is that you are? Today, let's talk about some of the external things that I've put my personal identity in. And when I go through different seasons and I'm able to, kind of sit back and self reflect, I realize that for the majority of my life, it has gone from me putting my identity into one thing to another, one thing to another. And I'm always finding that the way that I see myself is in something that is external to me. And this dates back to me first getting out of college, right? So, just to kind of set the scene, I was somebody who was a complete overachiever, if you will. School, I love school, everything about school, I absolutely loved. I was a top student, graduated with honors, starting from high school to college. And when I was in high school, most of my time was spent on, you know, books and cheerleading. Like that was high school. Then when I got to college, it was all about school. Yes, I partied a lot, but like my main focus was school. It was the vibe, the energy that, college life brought. I was doing all the things that a typical college student would be doing. It wasn't until I graduated college and moved to Atlanta and had like a big girl job and was kind of out in the real world where it was the first time in all my life that I wasn't getting any of like my validation from any of like my accolades or my good grades or my awards or rewards. Like I was just going to work and that was it. Like I was in a brand new city. I didn't know anybody. So my daily schedule consisted of me going to work, coming home, watching Netflix, and literally doing it all over again, day in and day out. And I went through this season when I was 25, fresh out of college, and I was just like, what the hell? Like, I was so depressed and I really couldn't figure out why. And so I kind of went on like this season of just soul searching, like truly trying to figure out who I was. And I realized because I had spent so much of my time and I had created this identity within, around school, I never developed habits, never really knew what it was that I liked. And this is something that I still am like actively working on today. But because when I was growing up, I didn't focus on hobbies, right? I didn't focus on things that necessarily made Natisha happy. Like I was focused on getting good grades. Like that was literally kind of my world. And everything that I did was about school. And so you can only imagine when I have no school, like what does that do to somebody? Right. And I really feel like the school system, college system, they really have to do a better job with preparing kids, like outboarding. You know how we onboard clients? We need to like out offboard college students and really prepare them mentally, like what they are about to expect, right? College kids live in a bubble created by, them being in school, their friends. Yeah, they might work, but they are a student, right? And so when you strip that away and you no longer have all of that, what do you have then? And so I went through this season where I had to sit in that. I had to figure out what is it that Natisha liked? What made Natisha happy? I remember reading this book. I'm gonna have to find my list. It was like I had this reading list. I had a book of maybe 5 to 6 books that I read in like 2016 or 2017 that just completely helped me like kind of create like this identity or kind of help me figure out like who I am. And I remember in one of the books, there was this exercise or challenge where she said, hey, you need to keep track of make a list of all the things that make you happy for 30 days. Like keep track of all the things that make you happy. Like really be aware about this. When you're around, this group of friends, how does that make you feel? Is it when you're with your dog? Is it when you're, eating this food or watching this show or exploring this part of the city or, doing some type of arts and crafts? Like, when is it do you feel happy? And you need to track that for at least 30 days. And I did this. I started really tracking the moments that I felt happy, that I felt joyful, that I was having a good time. And this was again the first time where I was very aware, I'd say, into what made Natisha smile, what made Natisha happy, right? And it was a complete game changer. And so highly recommend anybody who is feeling like they're in a season of just like, I don't know who I am. That is a really, really good place, really good place to start. Now, another book in this season that kind of catapulted everything for me into like this whole mindset shift is I read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad right out of college. And y'all, the way this book just like opened my mind was insane. First and foremost, I felt like everything that I had learned in school was a complete lie. So, on top of the fact I put my identity in something for so long, and then I'm reading this book and being exposed to this different world. And then it's like everything that I had ever learned was a lie, or like the truth was not really told, right? In regards to like finances, school system, just like all these things. And so it was just a lot, right? It was just a lot. But I'm so, so grateful, for that book and the books that I read during that time, because it really opened me up to this world of curiosity, this world of entrepreneurship. And I just started to change, right? I just started to change and I began to evolve into just a different version of me, right? And so that was one kind of, season or one thing that I put my identity in, right? Was just school overall. And so being able to kind of shift out of that and find out who I was and just be curious and read different books, loved that for me, right? And so next thing though, as you kind of evolve and as you grow and as I changed, like when you're growing and when you're evolving, like it can be very scary and very lonely. And when I was kind of going through this season of just like, really figuring out my truth and what was true to me and what I believed, I really felt like nobody understood. I felt like the transformation I was going through, nobody around me was going through a similar, transformation, at least not like in my close circle. Most of my friends were still, back at home. And so here I was in this brand new city getting exposed to new people and just new concepts. And like nobody was going through that with me. And so I had like so many questions of like, where do I belong? Right? Like, where is my community? Like, where are my friends? Because what happens is when we go through these seasons, and this could happen in any season, right? Like any moment of shift, like God stretches you in these moments to where you just feel like you are being stretched, you're being transformed. Nothing seems like it makes sense, right? And that's kind of how I personally felt. I felt alone, right? I felt like, okay, these have been the individuals that I've known for so long. Do I cling on to these relationships? Do I cling on to what I've known? Or do I embrace, the unknown? Do I embrace, kind of like a new way of living? And what personally happens to me when I'm in these seasons, And how I know I'm in these seasons is because I go through moments of isolation where I'll isolate myself. And I think there's, two sides to every story. When it comes to like isolating, I think depending on the type of person you are, I feel like isolation is good for some people because again, it's in these seasons of stretching, in these moments of change that you're able to like peel off another layer and kind of find out like become closer to who it is that you truly are. And so I believe like isolation is super important. However, what I have also come to realize is that you can only isolate yourself for so long before it becomes, I believe, detrimental to like your mental health, and it becomes counterproductive. Because there have also been seasons where I believe that I have isolated myself too long, where I'm just like now in this funk of just being alone and not really open to the idea of community or open to the idea of letting people in or wanting to be vulnerable. But what I have found is yes, it is great to isolate. Isolate though, for a moment, not extended periods of time, because we are meant to be together, right? Like we are literally not meant to be alone. We're not. And so you don't want to get caught up into this sense of oh, I just have to be alone all the time, because you absolutely do not. And you should heavily rely on those around you, the people who create your personal community. And that's just something that I personally have found, right? And so just these seasons of self evolution, right? We kind of lose our identity into that. Let me see. I've also have gone through relationship transitions, right? Where we get so caught up into the relationships that we are in with different people that we start to lose ourselves within these relationships. And this can be romantic, this can be platonic, but every time that I have like ended a relationship or that, relationship is no longer, I do that. I have these moments of self reflection where it's like, who am I without this person? Who am I if I can't call this person? Or who am I if I'm not tied to this individual? And it sucks, right? These different moments suck where you really just have to sit and be like, damn, like who am I without this person? Right. And I think sometimes we have to understand that it's not the end of the world, it's just the end of a world. Right. And so when we are in relationships, whether it's romantic, whether it's platonic, like we really have to be super mindful to make sure that we are staying true to ourselves to the core. Right. So whatever that looks like for you, whatever you have to do to feel like you when you're in a relationship, right? So I'll take me for example. My the relationship that I'm in now, something that I value that is super important to me, that makes me personally feel grounded, like I'm not happy if I'm not doing this, is journaling. Coming from somebody with like an anxious mind, I have to write out my thoughts. Like it just makes me feel better, right? And this is something that I do like daily. Like I have to journal daily. And I remember when I first got with my boyfriend, like before I got with him, like I was journaling every single day, most days, twice a day, morning and night. And then I got with him and I realized like I haven't been journaling as much. And I thought it was very strange. I was like, wow, I haven't been journaling. And it was starting to affect me mentally, where I was just like, I don't really like how I feel when I'm not journaling. Right. And so I told him, I was like, man, I got to get back to journaling. Like I stopped journaling. And until it got back into the habit, he was holding me accountable. He was like, hey, did you journal today? Like, make sure you journal. And that made me feel really good. But then I realized once I did start journaling, I was like, oh, like this is something that I personally need to feel good. Right. And you have to think about those things like, what is it that you have to do to make sure that you still feel whole, that you still feel like you, even when you are in a relationship, right? And so I would take some time, if I were you, to really kind of like just ponder on it. Like think about it. Like what what do I need in my life? Well, like what habits do I need to keep up with to make sure that no matter who I'm with, right, that these are the things that I have to keep in place for me to feel good. All right. So those are like relationship transitions. I've also have had like work or career transitions where when things have shifted, I have become very aware, like, wow, I had my identity wrapped up in this title or this role, So, for example, when I first got into entrepreneurship, I was in the network marketing industry. I was all in, right? I was all into this business for like 5 years. And it wasn't until I started to kind of self evolve and kind of shift and where I really had an identity crisis. And when I sat and reflected on kind of like the past 5 years of my life, I realized that somehow along the way, my identity became tied to this business. And I no longer knew who I was without this business, right? Like, what did my life look like if I didn't have this business anymore? Right? If I didn't have this business, what did I have to offer? Right? Who was I if I wasn't, building this business? And so we have to make sure that no matter what it is that we're doing, that we are able to kind of like separate things from who you are versus what you do. Because what you do is not who you are, it's just what you do. Right. And I think it took me a very long time. It took me a long time to kind of figure that out. And so in my current season, same type of thing. I was going through like another shift, especially when it came to like career wise, right? So I've been a full-time entrepreneur for so long now. At least 3 years, like just completely full-time, running my business full-time. And I talked about this in another episode, some of the things that I've had to forgive myself for. And one of the things that I did have to forgive myself for is moving into this full-time entrepreneurship role prematurely. Right now, luckily, I was blessed to be able to do so because I had a mom that allowed me to kind of just do my thing and, run my business, build my business. But not everybody has that luxury, right? Not everybody has that luxury, but I did. And so, the season that I'm in now, right? I got back into the workforce, the work field, and I struggled with this mentally, and like spiritually for a like long, hot little minute, right? Because I was just like, "Ugh, do I really want to go back to work? Right? Do I really want to go back to work? Or do I just want to keep building my business?" And so I was like wrestling with this for a long, long time. And so I just said a prayer and I just, I surrendered. I left it to God. I was like, you know what? Whatever kind of comes about will come about. If something comes about, cool. If it doesn't, I'm good. Right. And so a random opportunity came about to where I could help a startup, right? And I was like, okay, this seems kind of cool. And so every moment along this process, it just seemed like his hands were in it like the whole way. And so I felt extremely comfortable moving forward, taking on this position. And I was like, okay. But once I started actually working again, I had to then mentally come to terms with, okay, this is what I'm doing. And I realized when I sat and I self reflected that here I was in this transition period where I was once again putting my identity in what it is that I do, right? I can work full time. I could be a full time entrepreneur. Like it doesn't matter. But my identity is no. I don't attach it to the work that I'm doing, and that's kind of just like this new season that I've been in, and I love it here. And I feel like I finally get it. And all the things that I've been through over the last couple of years is probably like leading me to this point, especially for somebody who has always tied like my value. I've received my validation through like the work that I do. And so just being in this season now where I no longer like care about any of that, or at least to the point where I see my value in the work that I do. I don't see that anymore. I don't attach my value to what it is that I'm doing. And I really, really do love that for me. And so again, we just go through these different transitions. And when you're able to just sit and reflect, you're able to think, oh wow, that was me creating this identity attached to, what it is that I do, or who I'm in relationship with, or some of these things that I'm experiencing. And again, that's us putting our identity in something external and not internal. And so there's another transition that I'm just going to speak about because it's not something that I can personally relate to, but because I know many individuals who go through this transition, I just want you to know that you are seen here. And a lot of the conversations are with individuals that experience this, and that is motherhood. So many of the women that I'm connected to talk about being a mom and just some of the things that happen when you make this very big life transition into motherhood. And so again, just as a mom, think about the things that you need to maintain and uphold to where you feel like to where you're not losing yourself or your identity into your title of being a mom, right? And so I send you love and I send you all the blessings because, again, that is not a personal hood that I am able to relate with in this season, right? And so I wanted to kind of go over, I kind of wanted to go over some ways like, okay, if I'm in this season of having my identity wrapped into external things, what are some things that I can do to kind of go back and tap into me, learning out who I am down to the very core, right? And so I just wanted to kind of share some of the things that have personally helped me when I'm in these different transitions. First and foremost is writing. And this is not everybody's like thing, but for me personally, like writing is just like my sanctuary. No matter what season I'm in, like writing is just everything to me. Like start journaling. Like if you do not have a journal, get you a journal. And most people are like, oh, I want to start journaling, but I don't know what to say. Like literally just write what comes to your mind, put your thoughts on paper. Think about you could start with writing things that you like. Make a list of things that you like. Make a list of things that you hate, right? Start to identify like who are you? Start writing down some of your beliefs, right? And there's a good one. It's really, as you're in different seasons, start to take inventory of who you are at that moment. Because see, here's the thing, the things that you like, the things that you value, the things that you don't like, they're going to change from season to season. Because who I was at 24, I'm not the same at 30. The things that I valued at 21, I don't value at 30. And then there are those things that are you to your core, that you're always going to value. And so you have to figure out and identify like, what are those things for you? What are your values that are going to last with you a lifetime? All right. Our beliefs may change, but what are those values that are like, your core, no matter if you're 24-year-old you or 64 you, like that is who you are. Start to identify those, and how you can start to identify those is by just writing out your thoughts. For me personally, in this season that I'm in, I value peace, right? I value ease. I value energetically aligned connections. These are the things that I personally value. I value my time, right? I'm in a season of quality over quantity. And so figure out what your beliefs are. Another thing to write down is also figure out what your limiting beliefs are. What are some of those blockers that are holding you back from reaching different levels? And that could be, it can literally be anything. All of us have limiting beliefs that really hold us back. And so to kind of identify what those are, I would encourage you to read different books, listen to different podcasts, get into different spaces with different people. Reading is going to be like the best way to do that, because it opens up your mind to just different perspectives and different ways of thinking. And so if you feel like, okay, do I have some limiting beliefs? Read books. That's literally going to be the quickest way for you to figure out areas where you need to kind of grow in. Some of the limiting beliefs that I personally had was accepting, bare minimum treatment, believing that, some of the things that I allowed or tolerated, like I deserved that. My value being tied to the work that I do, definitely a limiting belief. Believing that money is tied to happiness, limiting belief, right? Thinking that you just need to make more money to be happy. I've made lots of money, and there have still been moments where I'm just like, no, because it's an internal piece, right? What are some other limiting beliefs? Believing that because I wasn't successful in one business, I wasn't going to be successful in another business, right? So figure out what ideas and things that you are holding on to that are holding you back. Then identify the things that make you happy. So I talked a little bit about this in the beginning of this episode, where I read this book, and there was this exercise or challenge where she had us write all the things that we liked or made us happy for 30 days. I promise you, do that, right? Figure out the things that make you happy in this new season that you're in. Be more open-minded. I can say that I'm like such more of a open-minded person ever since I've been with my boyfriend. I will post on like my story, me trying like Thai food or just doing different things. And my best friend, she's always commenting, and she's like, who are you? Like, who is this person? Because you don't eat curry. And so like, I'm just like, I'm in a much open-minded place, and I encourage you to do the same. And then as you do start to track the things that do make you happy, here is the key. Do more of those things. The things that you put on the list, make sure that you're spending your days doing those things that actually make you happy. And then one of the key things is going from almost like eliminating this victim mentality. When you start to understand that you are in complete control over your happiness, there is like this shift that will take place on the inside of you, where you realize nobody can affect how it is that you feel, right? Or like nobody has the power to control you feeling one way or the other. And when you can control, when you have a control over your emotions, you are pretty much winning at life, because you'd be so surprised by how many people do not have control over their emotions. And so when you get to the point where you're like, I don't receive that, I'm not allowing you to shift how I feel, right? That is a place of power. That is a place of power. When it comes to journaling as well, I am a big believer on manifestation. And I mean, I write everything. And over the last couple of years, I have realized that I am an extreme manifester. And most everything that I write actually comes true, which is why I am like so near and dear to like writing personally, because I know that it is a true powerful tool for me personally. And every time I write something down, like it's pretty much it is written. I'm pretty much creating my life. I truly believe that that's something that I truly live. And so if that is something that you want to try writing out what future you is living like. How does your life look like? Like, what does future you do? How do they feel? Like, what is their sense of being? And really start to tie yourself with this future you and then embody future you. And that's kind of how you bring that to pass. If you completely just don't know where to start when it comes to journaling, what I do is I'll just Google. I will literally Google journal prompts. And when I was in the season of kind of getting to know myself, I literally Googled journal prompts for self discovery. It was literally what I Googled, and every single morning I just looked at one of those prompts and I just wrote. And so, like, you don't have to do things perfectly. If you just 100% feel like there's just nothing going on in that little head of yours, Google some prompts. I'm also gonna, I actually created a thread for prompts for women. And so I'll make sure I link that in the notes, because that's another place that you can utilize. Let's see, staying in a state of gratitude. This one is going to be super big. When you are in a state of gratitude, you are remaining thankful for what has happened and grateful for what's to come. And so when you remain in this sense of or state of gratitude, I have come to the conclusion that being in this state of gratitude is actually what creates your future life. Like when you need that like creation energy, it's the state of gratitude. And if you remain in this state, like you can create whatever life you want to live. Um, Another thing when it comes to identity, and this is like a really, really big one. And I think this is the one that holds a lot of people back. And it's this piece of accepting who you are. Accepting who you are. So many of us do not accept who we really are. You need to release the shame. You need to release the guilt. You need to focus on living in this moment, in the present moment, and stop being so tied up to what has happened or being so, caught up into what's to come. And you just need to focus on the present moment and really sit and reflect on what it means to accept who you are. I talk a lot about visibility and showing up, right? And promoting yourself and building your business. And I've had too many conversations with women who are like, oh, I can't show up here, or I can't do this because I'm insecure about this, or I'm insecure about that. And it just gets me thinking, where it's like, you're never going to show up boldly. You're never going to show up confidently until you have accepted your flaws. Until you have accepted, oh, I don't care if I have this pimple on my face. Oh, I don't care if my hair isn't done. I don't care X, Y, and Z. Until you accept that, you're literally going to hold yourself back, and you're going to just be plagued and in a standstill, because you're not going to show up. You're not going to show up confidently. You're not going to show up boldly. And so I think when so many people talk to me about like this visibility piece and marketing themselves or building their business online, I think the foundation of it all is, do you accept you? Do you accept who it is that you are to your core. And if you truly do not, right, if you have not forgiven yourself, if you have not accepted yourself, it is going to be extremely hard for you to show up on a regular. And that is just the honest truth. And so no matter what season that you're in, no matter what transition you're experiencing, whether you're just in a season of self-growth, whether you're transitioning from a job or into entrepreneurship or out of entrepreneurship, or you're getting out of a relationship, or just the death of a world, right? No matter what season or period that you're in, I challenge you in this moment to take an inventory of where you're at. What are your values right now? What is it that brings you peace right now? What is it that brings you joy right now? And then execute and do more of the things that bring you peace, that bring you joy, that make you feel loved. Do more of those things, right? And ultimately, guys, we have to remember that our identity is not found on anything outside of us. It's literally all internal. It is literally all internal. And until you come to terms with that, until you come to peace with that, you're never going to be at peace with who it is that you are. All right. And so I hope you were able to find some of this helpful today. And as a reminder, I just have to remind you that you are seen, you are safe, and you are loved. I'll talk to you next time.